Jake, you sure we're turning the right way? Emily's voice snapped me out of the weird haze I'd been in for the last couple of hours, a mix of half-trance and half-doze. Odd thing was, even in that state, my hands gripped the steering wheel steady and guided the truck exactly where it needed to go. Sure, I grumbled, taking one hand off to give her shoulder an encouraging squeeze. Emily just sighed and popped her earbuds back in. She wasn't a fan of the tunes I blasted while driving. Guess Metallica wasn't her thing. I shrugged. Don't like it? Listen to your own stuff. Point was, she'd agreed to come along, which I honestly hadn't expected. Emily was a city girl through and through, born and bred in Chicago. Not one of those mall rats obsessed with tanning salons, but she got antsy without the hum of traffic and skyscrapers around her. Me? I grew up with my grandparents out in rural Illinois, off Route 66, and I loved it. Life was simple back then, carefree. Now, though, I'm headed to a funeral. Jake! Hello? Emily waved a hand in front of my face. We're gonna crash into that barn. We won't, I said, spinning the wheel. The truck rolled onto a faint dirt path. Anyway, we're here. She let out a soft "oh," and I couldn't blame her. I felt it too. This old town had changed a lot since I had last seen it. Back in the day, every house here looked tall, bright, and solid to me. Now, staring out the windshield, all I saw were sagging, dark shacks that barely held together, like they might collapse any second. The few folks left in Willow Creek drifted between homes like shadows and shot sour looks at my shiny new Ford pickup. Whoa! Emily yelped, shrinking into her seat. I followed her gaze and felt bile rise in my throat. Right by the road lay a pile of freshly gutted chickens, ribs jutting out, feathers and flesh clinging to frail bones. What hit me hardest, though, was the absence of any cats or dogs sniffing around. It was like the animals knew to steer clear, and that realization churned my stomach. What the hell? Emily whispered, hand over her mouth. Look how they're staring at us. Feels like I stepped into a damn horror flick. Jake, please, say goodbye to your grandpa and let's get out of here. I swear, I thought this was gonna be some cute little farm town, milk jug on the table, checkered curtains. Not this nightmare. I just nodded silently and squeezed her hand. I don't even know what's going on, I admitted. There's the house. See it up ahead? That's ours. So don't freak out yet. We'll handle this quick, then head back to the city. Hit that tight joint on Halstead Street. You can grab your favorite noodles and complain they overcooked them again. Deal? She managed a weak smile. I pulled her close and kissed the top of her head. Come on, let's go. We climbed out of the truck, and right then, a loud voice hollered from the side. Jake! Hot damn, what a sight. Knew you'd show up, just knew it. Grandma Ruth came barreling toward me and wrapped me in a bear hug. I bent down, breathing in that familiar scent of lavender and fresh-baked bread, and for a split second, I felt safe, like I was 6 again with no worries in the world. And this your girl? What a beauty! Grandma chirped, turning to Emily next. From the look on her face, Emily was caught off guard but warmed up quick and returned the old lady's hug. Get inside, you too. Ruth let Emily go and started herding us toward the house. Grandpa's hanging on, but you know, her voice cracked, and she brushed a tear away with her shawl. Emily shot me a worried glance, and I picked up my pace, dreading the moment I'd step inside and see Grandpa Joe turned into some lifeless shell. I let out a shaky breath. He was still there, lying in the back corner of the room. He turned his head at our footsteps. Grandpa Joe had always been a tough old guy, full of grit, but sickness had whittled him down to a twisted shadow of himself. When he saw me, his head jerked side to side, eyes bulging, mouth gaping silently. Weird thing was, he stared right at me, but it felt like he was looking through me into nothing. His twitching neck, vacant gaze, and slack jaw made him look like some creepy puppet ready to lunge. A chill shot down my spine. Grandpa flailed his arms weakly and tried to get my attention. I kicked off my sneakers by the door and hurried over, dropping to my knees beside the bed. Grandpa, I'm here, I mumbled awkwardly and reached out a hand. He grabbed it with surprising strength, making me wince. I came to say goodbye, I guess. I glanced back at Grandma Ruth, but she waved me off, like she meant don't mind me. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw her shove a mug of hot cocoa into Emily's hands. Poor girl looked lost and spooked. Then Grandma led her outside, probably to show her the old barn or something. Grandpa groaned, eyes rolling wild as he squeezed my hand tighter. No way. I didn't even know he had dementia, I thought. Shame and frustration burned me up. Couldn't just leave now. Had to stick around at least a day, or it'd feel wrong ditching Grandma. Emily'd get it. She's a good one. While I mulled over how to break it to her, Grandpa fumbled with his free hand under the pillow and shoved something at me. I took it on reflex and flinched, like a jolt zapped through my fingers. My hand opened on its own, and a beat-up notebook hit the hardwood floor. I bent to grab it, and when I straightened up, my heart sank. Grandpa's head lolled back on the pillow, eyes shut. For a second, I thought he was gone, but then I saw his sunken chest rise and fall, faint as a whisper. Guess he's just asleep, I muttered and weirdly tucked the notebook under my jacket. Gotta find Grandma now. Grandma was out back, tossing feed to the chickens. She lit up when she saw me and clapped her hands. Jake, honey, how's he holding up? Not great, I admitted. Why didn't you tell me he's losing his memory? I wrote he wasn't doing good. She looked genuinely surprised. But he recognized you, I reckon. Where's that pretty girl of yours? The gals took her. Look, there they come. Sure enough, down the main dirt road came a few girls, and right in the middle was Emily. She looked different, happy, almost glowing, and laughed with her head thrown back. I spotted wildflowers and ribbons woven into her hair. Jake! She spotted me, ran over, and threw her arms around me tight. While I was waiting, I hung out with Lucy, Tara, and Beth. They're so cool. I eased her back and studied her face. Pure joy radiated off her. Emily never smiled like that. Never. Glad you're okay, I said and kissed her forehead. She giggled again. Jake, hey! The other girls strolled up. Bet you don't remember us. We're the Millers. Beth's dad, Uncle Ray, helped fix your grandpa's shed when you were a kid. Truth be told, I didn't recognize a single one, but I forced a polite grin. They giggled back. They're taking me stargazing tonight. Emily blurted, like it was the best day ever. Lucy and the rest chuckled, but Beth gave me a hard stare, like she didn't approve of me showing up here at all. She's already got a guy, right? I pulled Emily closer, but she wriggled free and darted back to the girls. Silly, it's just fun, she said and waved me off. You want to spend time with Grandpa, don't you? I'll hang with them. Gonna check out the woods, then stargaze later. You're going into the woods? I blurted and realized how dumb it sounded. Emily in nature? That was as likely as a fish climbing a tree or a squirrel breathing underwater. Yeah, why not, she said, genuinely puzzled. For a second, I swear she seemed like a stranger. My Emily never acted this way. They say the woods are amazing right now, and you're always nagging about fresh air. We're off. See you late. She giggled again, pecked my cheek, and bounced over to the girls. They linked arms around her like a chain and marched off down a trail into the trees. Watching their backs disappear, a cold shiver crawled up my spine. Something felt dead wrong. Nice girls, Grandma murmured beside me. Her voice tinged with a strange sadness. Nice? Well, guess I got nothing to worry about then, I said and tried to play it off as a joke, hoping she'd catch my drift. She did, took my hand, and squeezed it hard. I slipped a little pouch in her pocket while she wasn't looking, she whispered. Lord willing, it'll keep her safe, salt, sage, a cedar twig. How was I supposed to stop them, Jake? There's 3 of them, and me. A tear rolled down Grandma's cheek. She swiped it away quick, like she was ashamed of it. My head spun. A pouch? What the hell kind of pouch? Salt and cedar? I wanted to fire off every question, but instead I said, Grandpa gave me something. I reached for the notebook, but she yanked my arm hard and dragged me inside. Not out here, you fool. Not here, she hissed. They'll see. Mrs. Harper, hey there. Yep, my grandson's here. Grown up big, ain't he? I turned and saw a tall, bony woman with a scrawny neck peering at us from the next lot over. She twitched her head bird-like and sized me up. Big boy, she drawled in a high, thin voice. Her shiny eyes locked on me. Must be a treat for Grandpa. First visit in how many years? Grandma fussed harder and practically shoved me through the door. Even forgot Grandpa's name, I bet. Mrs. Harper cackled and tipped her head back. I half expected her skinny neck to snap and her head to roll toward me like some creepy bowling ball. It hit me only after we crossed the threshold. Why was she laughing so hard at Grandma's jab when Grandpa was on death's door? Why was Grandma so desperate to hide me and act like I barely knew the old man? What's going on here? That last question slipped out loud before I could stop it. Grandma didn't answer. She was too busy locking the door and sliding a bolt home. Then she fished a bundle of dried herbs from her skirt, stuffed it into the keyhole, and muttered under her breath as she traced a claw-like shape on the wood with her finger. Lock, key, tongue. Jake, honey, don't ask nothing. Stay with Grandpa tonight. You'll figure it out. I'm heading to Mrs. Carter's after dark, but let's eat first. What about Emily? I said. Panic crept in. Gran, what about her? If you're gone and I'm with Grandpa, no point worrying about her now, she said and looked away. I didn't keep an eye out. But that pouch should help. They won't dare try anything while Joe's still breathing. Danger? Won't dare what? I grabbed her sleeve. What are they gonna do to her, Gran? What's this madness? Grandpa hands me some notebook. Emily, who hates the outdoors, skips off to pick daisies, and you're hiding me from the neighbors? Like I'm some kind of nutcase. That last word popped out unbidden, and Grandma gasped. Show me what he gave you, she demanded and pulled me to the table. I hesitated, then pulled out the notebook and set it down. She gasped again. I can't look in it, she said, shook her head, and stepped back. And you don't open it till you've sat with Joe, Lord help us. I'd hoped you'd be spared. What a mess. I don't get it, I said and ran my hand over the worn cover. It wasn't just warm, it felt hot. Why can't I open it now? Jake, sweetie, please, just trust me. Open it after you've sat with Grandpa, she said. Her voice broke like she might cry. I paused, then tucked the notebook away. And don't show it to anyone, not even your girl. Damn. Wonder how Emily's doing. I pulled my phone from my pocket and wasn't shocked to see 0 bars. She'll be fine, Grandma said, not sounding sure at all. You've got other stuff too. Oh, shoot, it's burning. She dashed to the stove where something sizzled and popped. I sank into my thoughts and glanced at Grandpa now and then. He slept on, just wheezing and coughing faintly. Dinner passed in silence. Both of us were lost in our heads. I fretted over Emily and that weird notebook, and I kept sneaking looks at Grandpa as he rasped louder. Every time those awful sounds came from the bed, Grandma jumped up, checked on him, then shuffled back muttering, dodged it, he'll make it. After we ate, I helped clear the table, moving on autopilot like when I was driving earlier. But the sharpness and worry were gone now. Sleep dragged me down hard. Come on, Grandma said, tugged me to a big armchair, and tossed a blanket over me. Rest, hon, you need it. But I gotta wait, I mumbled and fought it, though my hands grabbed the blanket and yanked it up to my chin. And Emily, gotta meet her. Sleep, hon, sleep, she said and patted my head. When I opened my eyes, it was pitch black. It felt like I dozed off for just a minute, but looking around, I knew it was deep night. Scanning the room, my gaze hit Grandpa's bed, and a scream ripped out of me. Grandpa Joe sat bolt upright, like he'd swallowed a pole, Grandma'd say. His eyes bored into me, unblinking, while his bony hands, claw-like, rested on his skinny knees. Seeing me awake, he opened his toothless mouth and boomed, Water, Jakey, come here. Just a nightmare, I told myself and shook off the blanket. I felt cold sweat soak me. A nightmare, that's it. I'm really back in Chicago. Emily sprawled across the bed. This ain't no nightmare, Grandpa cut in, rough and blunt, and barged into my thoughts. Come here. Witching hour's almost up. I checked my smartwatch on instinct. 3:30 glowed back. Witching hour, 3 to 4 in the morning, when they say dark forces peak. What's that got to do with me? I finally shook off the blanket and stumbled over on shaky legs. Grandpa nodded, all business, and I sank to the floor close enough for him to reach. The second I sat, he dropped his left hand on my shoulder. I flinched. It felt like a ton of bricks pinned me down. My strength, I'm passing it all to you, every last bit. I gather it up, tie it in a knot, and hang that knot round the neck of God's servant Jake. It's tight and won't come undone. My word don't turn back. It'll guard him, snake under the rock, pike in the river, hawk in the tree. Anyone who crosses my word burns alive, no peace for him. As I say, so it is, he chanted, and heat surged from his hand through me. I tried to speak, but he waved his right hand sharp, and my mouth snapped shut like it was locked. I grunted and twisted my head. He gave me a light smack for it. I give my power to God's servant Jake. He can tread this rotten earth and fear no evil. He can walk into the cursed woods, come out alive, and nobody'll touch him less he lets him, he went on. My head spun. Dream or real? Did I imagine faces at the window, pig snout noses pressed to the glass, sneering at his words? Was that a black shape shifting in the corner, ticked off? That's it, Jakey, that's it, he said. His hand slipped off my shoulder back to the bed. Now there's a warlock in the family. Protect it. Protect yourself. Protect this town, son. Warlock? What? I shot to my feet and felt light and loose all of a sudden. Grandpa, what are you talking about? What the hell's a warlock? What's this mean? Tell Ruthie I love her, he rasped. His voice sounded like dry leaves in the wind. And thanks for coming. Thanks. It's all in that notebook. You'll get it. His voice faded, and I watched, gut sinking, as his eyes rolled back and showed cloudy whites. His jaw twitched, then slid open and bared gums. His hand scratched the sheet once and stilled, caught off guard. Something cackled outside, wild and unhinged. I jumped, and the notebook tumbled open to the floor. I scooped it up and stared at Grandpa's familiar loopy handwriting from my kid days. Tucked between the cover and first page was a checkered sheet, like the recipe notes Grandma kept. I grabbed my phone, ignored the scratching at the window, and shone the light on it. Dear Jake, my time's short, so it's yours now, the gift. In our family, it passes down the men. Warlock blood, and you can't outrun it, no matter how hard you try. You're one now, son, like your dad, like me. After your folks passed, me and Ruth raised you best we could. Don't hold it against us. If we hurt you, it wasn't on purpose. Truth is, I hope the gift'd skip you. Ruth thought so too, especially when you moved to the city and stopped visiting. I ain't mad you stayed away. You're grown and got your own life. But, Jakey, if you're reading this, I'm gone. That means the town's peace is on you. Don't hate me, boy, but it's gotta be this way. Curse me all you want. Just don't run from the gift, or it'll turn on you and come back meaner. I tried that. Jake, look out for folks in need and help them. Everyone deserves saving. Learn what's good from bad, truth from lies. They'll test you and tempt you, but I know you'll pull through. Don't fear mirrors. Fear what's inside them. And keep the candles lit. Love, Grandpa. I finished, and a feral laugh erupted outside. Fists pounded the window. Jake! Mrs. Harper's voice. Open up. Need some salt. Jakey! Another yelp from the other side of the house. Jakey, $50 or a shot of whiskey? That was old man Pete, the town carpenter. This ain't real, I muttered and put my hands over my ears. I stared at the notebook on my lap. But if it is, there's gotta be a way. Hey, lover boy. A sharp girl's voice cut through the racket. Guess what's up with your sweetheart? Beth. I lunged for the door, but some invisible pull yanked me back. I glanced at Grandpa's yellowed face and the notebook sprawled on the floor, and I felt something new stir in me, a gut sense to spot real from fake and a way to save Emily without opening that cursed door. Get lost. I barked at the window, and it answered with mournful rustling and a howl. Free from the nagging voices, I zeroed in on Grandpa's gift. Before picking up the notebook, I took his hand and squeezed. Love you too, Grandpa, I said, sure he heard me. Thanks. Did the room brighten for a second? I shook it off and focused on the pages. Harvest charms, heart pain herbs, wards against dark things. Still clutching the notebook, I tore around the room, ripped dried bundles from the ceiling, and twisted them into tight knots. I stuffed some by the windows and hung the biggest over the door next to Grandma's bundle. A voice called from outside, but I brushed it off. Okay, Emily, what did Beth and those girls say? Stargazing tonight. Stargazing. What do I know? Toss a coin over a fence? Melt candle wax? Damn, there's dozens of old rituals. I jerked my head up from the notebook and scanned the room for a clue. My eyes landed on a small mirror on the wall. Cover it, I thought on reflex. Then it clicked. Girls circle up. One sits facing the mirror and lights 3 candles. She stares in and says 3 times, "Come, my fated one, show yourself." If she holds her gaze, her destined love walks out to claim her. The words popped into my head unbidden. Grandma's tale? Grandpa's? Or always there? Time was ticking. If I'd used the mirror to find her, I had to move fast. Grandpa's soul might linger and get trapped if it peeked in. Just in case, I laid a sprig of sage on his chest and mumbled, like a chick don't return to its egg, this soul don't come back to its shell. So be it. Candles were easy. I knew where Grandma stashed them since I was a kid. Found a lighter in my pocket. Quit smoking 2 years back, but kept it anyway. I eased the mirror off the wall, wiped it clean, set it on the floor, and placed the candles around it. Looks good. I breathed and raised a hand to light them, but I froze. A thought slithered in, what's this nonsense, man? You're on the floor in a shack with a corpse and messing with mirrors while your girl's who knows where. Maybe she's rolling in the hay with some farm boy. Guys drool over her in the city, and out here they're less picky. Where's your grandma? Probably sipping moonshine at the neighbors. Country folks, you know 'em. Drop this crap, hop in the truck, head back to Chicago, and let it all rot. The idea felt good, and my hand with the lighter drooped. Dumbass. Grandpa's voice roared in my skull. Didn't think you'd fall for it so easy. Disappointing, Jake. I jolted, and a mocking laugh echoed in my mind, like whoever tricked me was loving it. Pissed at myself, I flicked the lighter hard. A flicker lit the room. I held it to the first candle and caught my breath. It lit up fine. Did the second and the third, then set the lighter aside. Took a deep breath, like I was diving in, and stared into the mirror. My pale, sweaty face stared back, wide-eyed, framed by a black halo. The candles didn't brighten. They seemed to thicken the dark instead. Gotta look down the mirror tunnel and call her, I thought. It felt ridiculous. I cleared my throat and croaked, eyes glued to the inky depths. My fated one, my destined, I call you from beyond 7 mirrors and 7 locks. Come to me, show your face, name yourself, and I'm yours. The words flowed easy, like I'd practiced. Part of me, the city guy who rolled in this morning, doubted this junk, but deep down, I knew it'd work. And it did. She came. At first, it was just my face in the glass, but the longer I looked, the blurrier I got, and the candle flames burned sharper. Then, movement. From way back in that otherworldly void, a shadow drifted toward me, faintly lit. Couldn't tell who, but she didn't touch the ground, if ground even fit that freaky mirror realm. Who'd I call? What is this? My mind raced, scared stiff. The shadow lunged, and I jerked back and choked down a yell. Now the mirror showed a ghastly face, once a girl's. Tangled black hair plastered her forehead and cheeks. Lips twisted in a sick grin, and one eye socket sat empty, a gaping black pit. Want your fated one back? The thing opened its mouth and dragged a long, pale tongue, like a bloated eel, over its lips. Come get her. It stepped back and stood tall. I took it in, a skeletal frame draped in a tattered, faded sundress with water dripping off it. Hair hung past her shoulders, a messy shroud down her back. One eye blazed with hate, the other was a hole leaking water and river mud. The drowned girl tilted her head bird-like, beckoned me, then stepped back and beckoned again. Step, beckon, step, beckon. Didn't need to ask how she lured Emily into her watery hell. I saw it clear as day. Beth and the Miller girls sit Emily by a mirror and stroke her flower-decked hair, teaching her the words. Beth coaches her while one sister lifts Emily's limp hand. Another pricks her finger with a needle. They catch her red blood in a tiny vial. Crimson flashes in their eyes. They want to taste it, but something stops them. Who? Then the drowned girl appears and tells Emily I'm waiting in that mirror world. Half out of the glass, she leans close and drips something sticky and dark on the floor. She grabs Emily's shoulders, pulls her in gentle, and Emily doesn't fight, like her soul bled out with that drop. I got it all without asking the drowned girl a thing. I sensed Beth and the Millers lurking outside and bet I'd storm out and demand Emily back. Then they'd keep the prize, no sharing. Let him get mad. They'd feast on a real warlock's flesh and blood. Who's he? As I wavered, a low voice rumbled from the mirror. Know this, warlock. Your grandpa took something from me. Hurt so bad I threw myself in the river. Opened my eyes, nothing but darkness sticking to me like webs. Far off, the moon glowed, prettiest thing I ever saw. Reached for it, screamed, water choking me. Scared I'd drown twice. Scared next time I'd see nothing, not even the moon. But he pulled me out, hauled me from that icy black deep to the surface. Under the moonlight, he spilled it all. My baby didn't die natural at birth. Your grandpa killed it and said it'd save me. Fool! What's a man know about a mother's death being her own? He signed my doom with that choice. I waited long, warlock. Nearly forgot. Then he reminded me you'd come back to this town. Can't reach the old bastard now, but his blood's in you. I can hurt you like they hurt me. You up for it, warlock? Gonna try saving your pretty thing before the dark drains her dry and makes her like me? The voice faded to a whisper, then a soft giggle, and silence. I couldn't see the shadow anymore, but she was there, deep in the glass, waiting for my move. Don't let the candles die. I picked up the nearest one, took a full breath, and shut my eyes. When they opened, darkness swallowed me. Only the moon's blinding glare hit my face. "Wanna play, warlock?" A girl's voice giggled nearby. I blinked. Eyes adjusted to the gloom. Something fluttered left of me. I saw the candle's faint glow still in my grip. Knowing I'd kept it alive eased me a bit. "Let's play, river girl." I shot back and scanned around to figure out where I'd landed. Twisted black shapes loomed. Took me a second to recognize them as the warped houses of Willow Creek. I stood on my grandparents' porch. The town stretched out before me. Gotta find her by the river, in the woods, I thought. That meant crossing Willow Creek first. I took a step, and a hiss came from my left. "Where you off to?" Mrs. Harper's voice, unmistakable. I almost snapped back, but Grandpa's notebook flashed in my mind. "Don't answer the dead. They'll drag you down. Don't question them. They'll pounce. To pry something out, speak aside, don't look. Wonder how far the river is." I tossed out casual and kept my voice steady. Peripheral vision caught a shadow dart along the fence. Something held it back. "River's close. Into the woods, turn left, 10 steps, she cooed, syrupy sweet. So it's far, and I turn right, I figured silently. You're slipping. Nice town. Girls here probably pop out healthy kids every year, I said and inched forward to shield the candle. Born helpless, sure, she hissed. Hunger crept into her tone. Then she wailed. I flinched and nearly dropped the flame. She laughed and sounded pleased with her stunt. "What about?" I pressed and ignored her barking cackle. "Any drownings around here?" The laugh cut off. A gurgle sounded instead. After a beat, Mrs. Harper spat dry and bitter. "Not a one, mister. Combing your grandpa's place." River girl dropped it. I tensed and treaded careful now. Heading to the woods. Toss it in the river. Might cheer her up. Give it. A hollow, awful howl erupted beside me. She lunged, but I didn't glance her way, though my insides shook. Keep moving, step, step, step. She can't reach past the fence. I knew it somehow. Scariest damn moment of my life. I hit the fence's end, and her voice faded. Then a new sound, soft crying mixed with a whisper. "Carrie, my Carrie, little sis." Hit me then. Mrs. Harper had a younger sister. Barely remembered her, just a kid myself, but I pictured a smiling girl with blue eyes bright. "Give me the comb," came a dull plea behind me. "Give it, Jakey." Nothing's left of her. Ma burned it all. Too bad I lied. "No comb here," I forced out. Words felt heavy. I braced for her to shriek and rush me, but nothing. She just wept quiet, and that cut worse than any curse she could have thrown. It felt like forever before I reached the town square. No one else bugged me. Guess the locals in this mirror world had no beef with me. I'd have kept walking easy if not for the sight that stopped me cold. A shrine, big OL boulder with a wooden idol carved out front and crowned with deer antlers. The wood gleamed like hands polished it daily with prayers. The rock shone too. A closer look made my gut lurch. Blood coated it, dried patches and fresh streaks. Dead animals piled at its base, gutted and tangled into one nasty heap. Before I looked away, I caught a rabbit's dull black eye staring up. Nearly puked. Who told the river girl about Grandpa? Who held the Miller girls back? Who do these folks worship and trade their souls to? The idol's eyes flashed, and my knees buckled. I'd have hit the ground if I hadn't caught the boulder. My hand slid on sticky blood, and I lost it. I heaved bile onto the carcasses. Get out, a voice boomed in my head and pounded like a drum to squeeze my temples. Back to the house. Might make it home. I checked. The candle still burned, somehow, and that gave me a spark to keep going. I wiped the mess off my clothes and face and stood tall. Get to the edge of town, find the trail, I rasped. River's there, and her. The voice quieted, but my head throbbed on. I'll wait in my realm, my woods, it said, the one the Millers feared, the one this town bows to, the Forest King. Grandpa used to spin bedtime yarns, wood sprites, water spirits, bog hags. One stuck and gave me nightmares for months, a horned, terrifying thing ruling the wilds, the Forest King. Jakey, he runs everything out there, from spiders to foxes. Want a favor? He takes hot blood as pay. Only lost, dark souls call on him. But don't you fret. He won't touch you or me. We got a deal. Long as you don't let him, he can't harm you. Nothing to fear. My worst nightmare, real, not a story, and I'm about to face it. But I'm here now and gotta save Emily. I pushed on and felt the idols, and that damn rabbit's eyes on my back. I reached the trail into the woods and paused. Willow Creek loomed behind me. I didn't see him, but I knew they watched from windows and sent off the dead warlock's grandson on his last trek. Hope this jerk don't come back from the trees, some stranger's wish echoed in my skull. I spat over my left shoulder. Stepping under the branches, I braced for anything, wolves or whipping limbs clawing at my eyes. Nothing. Just walked with the candle held high, like a Sunday stroll. Then the river glinted ahead, not wide, but deep, real deep. Always told as a kid, no swimming, no getting close. Now here I am and stared into it, and there's Emily under the surface. I bolted forward and itched to plunge my hands in and yank her out, but a jolt hit me. The candle. Can't let it go out. How do I save her? Spotted a flat rock nearby, set the candle down careful, and turned back. She floated there, like in a glass coffin, pale, peaceful, flowers still tangled in her hair and swaying in the current. I bent to the water and reached out, but my fingers hit something solid, an invisible wall between us. I slammed my fist into it. Pain shot up my arm like I'd punched concrete. Damn it, I hissed and grabbed the candle again. Come on out, sweetheart. She stepped from behind a tree, silent and calm. Dark hair clung to sharp shoulders and spilled down her thin back. Bare feet patted soft on moss and left wet prints. One dark eye burned into me, hate and fear mixed, blue lips parted with a gurgling rasp. You're here. Hey, Carrie, I said. Drowned girl, she hissed and staggered back. Her face twisted, and something wriggled out her empty socket. Harper blabbed, she croaked. Her voice was thick like it came underwater. You don't even know how. How could you? It almost sounded pitiful. Yeah, how'd I think I could free a restless ghost, or myself? Too much? She caught my doubt and eased closer. You can pull your sweetie from the water, only if you take her place, she whispered and stared. Another step. She'll go home free. That's what you want, right? First, I want to help you. A wax drip on my hand snapped me awake. I call to the soul of God's servant Carrie and free her from the grief weighing her down. My words solid as a lock and strong as an oak. She screeched and lunged at me. I didn't budge. Eyes shut, I gripped the candle. Wax burned my skin, and I kept going as she raged. I lift all 7 seals off God's servant Carrie's soul. Let the water that took her dry up. Let her body rest in the earth and find peace. She screamed and hit the ground to claw herself. No blood showed on her pale flesh. As I say, It's done. My word stands. I can't take it back. Rest easy, Carrie, and trouble no living or dead no more. Her cry cut off. Silence fell. Then a splash. I ran to the river. Emily's face twisted in terror, mouth gaping. She'll drown. I thought, propped the candle on the grass, plunged my hands in, and grabbed her. I yanked hard, and this time the water let go. We crashed onto the bank. She coughed. I gasped for air. I glanced over. The candle stood, still lit. For a second, I thought we were in the clear. So cold, Emily whispered, snatched the candle, and squeezed it tight. River water poured off her hair. The flame snuffed out. A deafening laugh boomed from the woods. What now, Warlock? No one to beg but me, and you know my price. Give her up, go home alone. Or send her back, and you stay. What's it gonna be, Warlock who can't save his love or himself? Only good for scaring dumb girls? The world shook. Trees bent, snapped back, and warped. The river churned white. Emily clung to me and sobbed quiet. I felt how useless I was. What now? What good am I? Jake! A commanding voice cut through. I flinched. Jake! Grandpa's voice. I jumped up and held Emily tight while spinning around. There, a flicker through the trees. Gone, back again. Run! I grabbed her hand and pulled. This way, quick! It rang sure and firm. We tore through the brush and dodged nothing. Branches lashed our faces, arms, and legs. Emily whimpered behind me, but I gripped her harder and dragged her on. Scratches later. Gotta get out first. The light ahead burned steady now. We ran through that damned forest and stuck to the path. My eyes stung, branch sting, exhaustion, and fear blurred it all. Then it smeared into one bright blaze. Fire flared up. Last thing I felt before blacking out was a heavy hand on my collar that yanked me up toward the light. Fool, a familiar voice grumbled, real or imagined, I couldn't tell. Grandma Ruth found us at dawn, back from Mrs. Carter's. We were sprawled by the shattered mirror with candle stubs scattered. One was in Grandpa's hand. He gripped it tight, no prying it loose. In his other, a scrap of my shirt. I came to and rushed to Emily. She was okay but shook bad. She threw herself at me and sobbed loud, "Don't let me go." Grandma fussed over her and bustled to brew herbal tea for nerves and pain. I sat Emily at the table, promised I'd be back in 2 minutes, and stepped outside. Needed fresh air to shake off the filth I'd waded through. A rustle. Mrs. Harper. She looked away when I caught her eye. Found something, I said, stepped to the fence, and held out my hand. Figure you'd want it back. Her shaky fingers took it, a plain wooden comb with little flowers carved on it. I dug it out of Grandpa's stuff while Grandma tended Emily. Won't change nothing, she whispered and clutched it while nodding toward the woods. He's still out there and always will be. I followed her gaze. Did the trees move? Maybe not always, I said and headed inside. Time to get Emily and go home.